Welcome everyone to this month's Innovation Club. I'm Richard Evans, Head of Business Development and Innovation within the Research and Innovation Department here at Leeds Teaching Hospitals Trust. So thank you everyone for joining today. We have a great range of speakers lined up for you today, and I'll share the agenda for today's session in a second. We wanted, obviously the session is entitled Digitising NHS Processes and Improving Productivity, and we were keen to hold a session aligned with the recently announced NHS long-term plan, which obviously talks, if I'm sure you've devoured it in full detail, but that talks a lot about seizing the opportunities provided by new technologies and innovations, and particularly digital, and that we hope you'll hear about some of those new technologies and digital innovations coming through today, which are very much aligned with one of the three big shifts moving from analog to digital that's mentioned in the long-term plan. So I'm just going to quickly share my screen, and I'll show you the agenda for today's session. Bear with me, you don't want to see that. Really pleased to say we've got three companies lined up for you. First of all, Medishout, and we have Sanah, who is their implementation manager from Medishout, also joined by Chris Greaves from our medical physics team, who is using the Medishout platform currently across a pilot that's happening in the organisation already. We have Michael Morgan-Curran, CEO of Asclepius MedTech, so really pleased to have Asclepius presenting again. Actually presented a couple of weeks ago at our Research and Innovation Conference, so great to see you again, Michael. And likewise, we also have Michael Odling-Smee, who's Chief Executive Officer of Aire Innovate, Aire Logic, who's going to be presenting on the work that they do, and of course they're very much integrated with our PPM Plus electronic health record in the organisation. So that's today's agenda. Just a couple of reminders for everyone: today's meeting is being recorded. So just for you to be aware of that, we will be sharing that afterwards so that more people can consume today's content. Please do, throughout the course of today's meeting, share any questions that you might have in the chat. We will be pausing for questions after each presentation as well. So again, if you want to, come in and raise your hand and ask your question at that point, that would be great too. So I think before I use up too much time, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hand over to Sanah Ali, who is Implementation Manager from Medishout. Sanah, over to you.
Thank you, Richard. Right, bear with me a moment. I'll just share my screen. Do let me know when it pops up. It's currently loading for me.
Sure, it is currently loading, Sanah. It's just taking a little bit of time. Here we go, coming.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, we can see that. Thank you.
Brilliant. Okay, I'll make a start. Hi, everyone. I'm Sanah. So I'm an implementation manager at Medishout, which is a digital platform that helps hospitals streamline the way they report and resolve operational issues. We've been running a pilot with Leeds Teaching Hospitals, and it's a really good example of what happens when you take a process that was traditionally quite manual and slow and bring it into the digital age. So I'm looking forward to sharing this with you today. As Richard said, please, if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat, and I know we've got some time later for Q&A. So who is Medishout? So Medishout is a one-stop app for hospitals and suppliers to streamline their operational environments across multiple pathways, from fault reporting to stock management. And we bring an Amazon-like efficiency to hospitals' non-clinical operations. And in turn, that reduces delays and frees up frontline staff to focus on patient care. We're in over 110 hospitals across 3 countries, and we are also partly owned by the NHS. We partner with MedTech companies such as Olympus and B. Braun, and we're supported by NHS England, GIRF, the Innovation Accelerator Programme. The founding of Medishout was quite literally a light bulb moment. So our CEO is a doctor by background, so Dr. Aire. He's an orthopedic surgeon, and he once had to cancel 3 operations in a single morning because of a faulty light bulb in the theatre. And that sounds extreme, but sadly, it's not uncommon. So the industry problem. So how we actually work is we know that hospitals want to want digitized services, and that there are currently inefficiencies which lead to things like cancelled operations, etc. And for medical device companies, it's the same. So there is a lack of digital services directly to the hospital, and that ultimately leads to poor visibility all round. Oh, apologies, my animations aren't working. But ultimately, there is a digital gap. And this impacts the customers for reporting faults, tracking loans, raising POs, PPM planning, which is planned preventative maintenance planning, and managing stock. Here is just some data to show how this directly impacts the patient. So there is a rise in cancelled operations, 32%, and also a rise in NHS waiting lists, which we know is rising on a monthly basis. Ultimately, there are many suppliers, around 82,000 suppliers, all working in very different ways. And this is where the Medishout solution comes in. So we provide that digital connection between hospitals and medical device companies on our platform. And our services cover reporting faults, purchase orders, product support, loans and planned preventative maintenance, and also stock. And here are just some examples of some of the suppliers that we work with. So Olympus and B. Braun, and some published data. So the benefits include saving hospital time, hospital staff time, customer support time, loans and equipment are returned faster, and fewer cancelled operations, which is really positive. So that brings me on nicely to the work that we've been doing here in Leeds. So over the last 6 months, we've been running a pilot with Leeds Teaching Hospital and Stryker, which is a medical device company. And we've been focusing on exactly the issues that I've been discussing and looking at how Medishout can replace manual reactive processes with something more proactive and data-driven. This partnership has been all about working together and really understanding the day-to-day challenges staff face, and then understanding how Medishout can solve this. It's been truly collaborative from the start, and we're now nearing the end of the pilot phase. So I will share some information on the pilot. Like I said, the pilot is still ongoing, but I'll just talk through some of the challenges and solutions and some early data. So before we started the pilot, and in the early phases, we spent time with the teams across the trust to really understand the daily frustrations around managing equipment issues, especially when something breaks or needs to be sent for repair. And what we heard was consistent, which is reporting faults and tracking equipment often relies on email chains, phone calls, and even paper forms. Loaner kit needs to be chased manually, purchase orders need to be followed up, and delays often happen just because the right information wasn't included in the first place. There is also a real lack of visibility, so the teams are unaware of where things are in the process, and this leads to duplication, wasted times, and even cancel procedure in some cases. And this is exactly what the analog process that slows everyone down and creates risk is, and it's what we set out to tackle together for both us, the hospital, and Striker. And just to be clear, this isn't anyone's fault. It's just the result of systems that haven't kept pace with the demands of modern healthcare. And all teams are doing the best that they can with the tools that they have. So the solution, our goal with the pilot was to replace all of that manual chasing with a really simple and digital workflow using our platform. So our app is available on mobile and desktop to allow teams to report faults in real time, with all of that key information up front. From there, everything is tracked within the platform. So repair status, supplier communication, and even the location of the equipment. So instead of relying on email trails, and the teams will instantly get updates and have a live view of what's outstanding, what's in progress, and what's resolved. This ultimately results in faster responses, fewer delays, and making life easier for staff. Now that we're near the end of the pilot, we've started to see some really promising improvements. So I'll just share a few. So response times are quicker. Issues are picked up and acted on faster, simply because the right information is in the right place from the start. Communication is smoother too. So instead of going back and forth on emails, everything now happens in app. We have a direct messaging functionality as well, so the hospital team can liaise directly with the supplier in app. And this has saved time and cut down on avoidable follow-ups. The teams now have visibility into equipment that's out for repair or on loan, and that has been a really big win. There's also less duplication and fewer delays overall. Most importantly, the feedback from staff has been really positive, and hopefully we'll share some of that today. They found that the system's really easy to use and helpful in staying on top of what's happening. And here are just some early statistics that I can share. So we've saved 3 hours for the hospital, 2 hours for the service desk at Striker, and 100% loaners are returned within the expected time frame, which is really positive. So, in a complex system like the NHS, many daily processes are still held back by analog methods, paper forms, phone calls, chasing emails, and we see this all the time. And this pilot shows that even digitising just one key area, like equipment reporting, it can have a real impact, saving time, reducing cancellations, and ultimately improving patient care. And as Richard highlighted at the beginning, this aligns with the 10-year health plan. And we're really excited and proud of this partnership that we've been building with Leeds Teaching Hospitals, and excited to see how this kind of innovation can support that broader goal as well as Leeds Teaching Hospital goals. So just before I close, I'd like to introduce Chris Greaves from the clinical engineering team. Chris has been working very closely with us throughout our pilot, and hopefully is going to share some insights on how Medishout has impacted Chris's team's day-to-day work here in Leeds. Thank you. I'll hand over to you, Chris.
Right, good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me. So yeah, we've been doing this for, it must be over a year now. And yeah, it has turnaround time on surgical tools, typically up at Chapel Allerton, but it is slowly rolling out into trauma and neuro, ENT, for all the Striker tools here. But basically turnaround on broken parts is now 50% quicker. Initially, they would report it to me. They'd fill in one of our medical physics repair forms, so they had to fill that in. They'd call us, say it's faulty. We'd go to Chapel Allerton, which is only twice a week, in a van, collect it. They'd bring it back. They'd dump it on my desk. I'd be working at LGI, but it's up at St James's because we're centralised. So then I'd get back to St James's maybe a week later, process it. So we've already had that possible 2-week delay at the start to process it. So now with this new process, a sort of nominated person logs it onto the portal. I get a notification that it's been logged. So I can open that up, see what this serial number is, type that into our database, log it that it's gone to Striker with the Medishout reference number. My bit's done. I'll get a notification when it's been completed with a service report attached, so I can then add that to my job, close it down. If it's a straight replacement, it tells me the new asset number or the new serial number, so I can create an asset directly, because we don't stick them on the devices because they come off in the sterilizers. So I can just create it, don't have to see it. So it's so much quicker. It's saving me a good sort of 3 hours in my whole process. It's good. There's a new feature that's just been added. So if, say, a Core 2 console broke down in neurotheatres, we'd report it. So they smashed the screen in one recently. We get a loan replacement. We then have to do all the master indemnity to indemnify the trust to make sure we're not liable should it cause any problems in theatres. That is now automatically generated in Medishout. So again, that's probably saved me another half an hour on top. And it'll go to the rep who signs it, comes to me, I sign it, and it's done. And I can attach that as well to the record. So it's getting better. Obviously, we're not filling in paper forms. I had to do emails, ping those, chase them up. So I've gone on this now with Striker. I am completely paperless. No duplicate books to fill in or anything. So big bonus there. So there's less paperwork on my bench. So we've done that. There's a feature ultimately coming out where it'll actually even log everything on my database for me. So when that comes in, I shall be even happier, because I won't be able to do most of the admin. It'll just be a little bit of sense checking. It might be that an asset's come in that we don't know about and it can't log it, and I'll just have a little bit of tidying up to do here and there. And then I think there's another feature coming up that we might be having a meeting about later this week with more suppliers, and they're looking at supplying of parts and that sort of thing, because that is probably our biggest bottleneck in clinical engineering, is ordering parts. We think we've done it. Our reception staff put it through iProc, goes off to e-procurement, and then we sit there waiting for it to turn up. Turns out that e-procurement had been told there's a price discrepancy, but they don't tell us. So then it sits there until we chase it and we go, all right, change the order, do it. Or a supplier like GE might change their email address, but it hasn't been changed at e-procurement's end, so it's still going to the wrong address and they don't get it. And then 3 or 4 months later, we're chasing it all up again and going, you didn't receive them, you've changed it. So there's all that. So with this new feature, we'll get that they've changed their email address, we'll get up-to-date pricing, so we will eliminate all that downtime. So then ultimately we'll see parts coming in quicker and broken equipment turning around far quicker than it is at this moment in time. So for me, this has been an absolute godsend. That, and say most of that is just with Striker. The more people we can get on, Olympus, B-Braun, Covidian, Medtronic, I can go through quite a few suppliers, which are a bit of a nightmare to deal with. But if we can get it, that we get this, so somebody's responding to it in a timely manner, it's definitely the way forward, and I'd recommend anyone to use it.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. That's really positive and also powerful to hear, and I'm so glad Medishout's working so well for you. Thank you so much.
No problem.
So that's us completed. I do think we ended in time as well, Richard.
Perfect timing. Yeah, I marked that at 16 minutes, so well done. And great to hear your experiences, Chris, from the clinical engineering perspective as well. It's great to have people like yourself from the ground actually giving your sort of how this is working in the trust. So thanks very much for coming and sharing your experiences too. Thank you, Sanah. I'm going to pause there for any questions that anyone might have for Chris or for Sanah, and perhaps while people are thinking, just to Chris, you mentioned actually the other potential companies you'd like to see sort of coming on board, and and certainly, clear potential there for more suppliers to start using the platform. Sanah, where do you see that sort of potential trajectory of growth in terms of companies coming on board? I know there's further perhaps pilots planned with other companies in Leeds.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we've had conversations with Chris, and we're understanding what kind of suppliers and like just what kind of issues Chris and the team are having. Ultimately, we want to see Medishout as a system that's Chris and the team are able to just log on, and whatever equipment they have in, they can just report it faulty. So the more suppliers, the better, as we want it to be a single system that the hospital do use for reporting faults and the services that we offer as well. So it's definitely in the talks where we're working really closely with Chris on understanding his priority suppliers.
That's great. Thanks, Sanah. So yeah, might be really good to get you back in 6 months, 9 months, and see how things are sort of progressing. Get you back, Chris, as well, to share how that's looking on the ground. But certainly great example there, I think, of digitising processes in the NHS, and some real impact in terms of time savings and efficiency, and actually a process that's gone paperless now. Then, Chris, it sounds so. That's fantastic. So thank you both for coming. Thank you for presenting, and please, anyone, get in touch with Sanah or Chris if you have any other questions that you'd like to ask. At this point, mindful of time, I'm going to move on and introduce our next speaker for you. So I'm very pleased to have with us Michael Morgan-Curran, who's CEO of Asclepius MedTech. Michael, I'm going to hand over to you to present on Asclepius. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard. Let me just get rid of your picture at the
You're back, Michael. We lost you very slightly, but I think you're back now.
Can you see that, Richard?
I can. Yes, thank you.
Sorry, you're on mute, I think, or I'm on mute. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think everyone can see that. If I could get thumbs up from the rest of the group.
Hello?
Yeah, get some nods.
It's in the notes mode, though, that I can see.
I don't think Michael can hear us, can he?
Can you see my screen okay?
We can see your screen, Michael. Can you hear us?
Is that better?
Perfect. That's good.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael. Thank you very much for letting me join you all to Asclepius MedTech. First of all, I just wanted to introduce myself and the team, if that's okay. So I'm Michael Morgan-Curran. I am probably older than all of you on the call today. I feel like I've been around since aspirin was first launched. But I have a history working for life science and pharmaceutical companies. But I just wanted to explain who the rest of my co-founders are within the business. Some of the names you may recognize on the screen. So one of my co-founders is Professor David Jane, who all of you will know is responsible for the NIHR Research Centre based here in Leeds. And another co-founder is Dr. Neville Young at the Health Innovation Network. And another one then is Mr. Ramval Vaganam, a very experienced gentleman who used to work for Mars Inc., running big IT systems. So there's nothing he doesn't know about setting up digital infrastructure. But let me just remind ourselves a little bit about the NHS plan that was explored last week. And thank you so much for letting me come to the event last week. You know, Rob, Aileen, Bev, yourself, Richard, and Mo, you did a fantastic job. It was an enormous event to try and run and logistically manage, but it was a great success. But the choice is stark for the NHS. That was one of the key messages that came out of the NHS plan. And what we've done is at Asclepius, we have developed a search fit that will try and address some of those key themes, particularly the analog to digital in terms of transforming services. So when we were building Asclepius 5 years ago, we very much had that in mind because we knew what was happening within surgical preoperative assessment. And of course, all of you will know, no rocket science, we're able to address some of the other themes that are emerging from the 10-year plan, particularly shifting hospitals from community and moving towards more prevention, to more preventative health, so that we can identify problems before they actually occur and become relevant during the surgical pathway. So our mission is very simple. We want to improve the quality of life and outcomes for patients undergoing surgeries and tackle some of the mobility and health inequalities challenges which patients are facing across the region. It may surprise you to know that up to 30% of patients do not access surgical preoperative assessment because of health inequalities challenges. And we wanted our system in order to be developed and shaped and delivered so that we could address some of those health inequalities as well. And we're wanting to tackle some of the bigger challenges in surgical outcomes. For example, 25% of patients still experience complications. 1 in 8 are readmitted in 30 and 90 days. And the cost of those readmissions, particularly for the NHS, is about 1.3 billion. And the mortality rates haven't changed in over 30 years. And, you know, the UK is not alone in that experience. That's affecting hospitals internationally as well. So it's great to see that the NHS and international hospitals are wanting to transform surgical preoperative assessment services. So why is pre-op not working as well as it could do? Well, we've had the same technologies and the same methodologies for years. And there is very much clearly an unmet need for new technologies that will improve the risk stratification of patients, so that we're more granular about the clinical decision making that we're making, and that we can actually improve and actually deliver on shared clinical decision making with patients, as opposed to using standardized data sets. So what is the problem? Well, those of you on the call that work in surgery will know that the preoperative assessment process is all based around collecting single points of data. And as a result, it's underpowered, and therefore we do experience ineffective risk stratification. All we can do is simply classify them in ASA 1 to 5. And the methodologies that we use in clinical practice are not suitable for all patients. Some of you may have experienced the CPET test, which is used across the trust, and is used across many trusts in the UK. It's not actually extensively used in international markets. And that's for the very simple reason that not all patients can tolerate it. You generally have to be fairly fit to pedal a bicycle for 25 for a period of time. And the whole system is very time consuming and costly. And it is regarded as an analog service. Now, what's happening in preoperative assessment at the moment is it's actually costing anything between £700 and £900 per patient. And the current system is affected by white coat. And the experience for patients, which we forget about, is taking about 2 to 2.5 hours of patient time. In some hospital trusts, particularly in orthopedics, when they're doing other investigations, the time commitment for a patient can be up to 4 hours. And it is requiring at least 4 to 5 healthcare professionals to take a patient through the preoperative assessment process. And of course, it's fixed to hospital. So what is it that we're doing with SearchFit? Well, it is the world's first truly remote assessment alternative. And it captures longitudinal data on the patient so that we build up a truer picture of the patient's health status, which means that we can improve the risk stratification and be more bespoke in supporting the data collection and the data quality to improve risk stratification so that we can have a higher diagnostic value. And that's really important because I'll come on to describe the system in a minute, but we record data for up to 7 days. So if there is an underlying condition which would normally be missed in the pre-op clinic, we will diagnose it, particularly around heart arrhythmias and respiratory problems. And what's great about the system is it's suitable for all ages. So we don't have that problem with patients not accessing CPET. It's more time efficient, it's more productive, and it's less expensive. And it is truly a digital alternative. It currently costs 50% less than the current assessment practice. So SearchFit is priced at £350. And it means that we can assess 5 more patients in the time taken to assess 1. And we've done those time and motion studies to ascertain that data. And of course, it is backed up by an extensive clinical study that was undertaken at St James's Hospital. And the system only takes 15 to 30 minutes to fit. So that means that the patient, if it's coming into the hospital to be fitted with SearchFit, it means that we only have to commit to a 15 to a 30-minute consultation. And it requires only 1 healthcare professional. And those of you on the call that are streets ahead of me at the moment, when I talked about moving services from hospital into community, It also gives us the advantage that SearchFit could be fitted in community settings, in GP practice and in pharmacy, if there is a shared agreement in place with the trust in order to do that, which again makes it more convenient for patients. So what does it look like? So we fit the patient with a wearable biosensor, which they wear on the chest. It's regulated as a Class 2 medical device. And that is recording ECG, heart rate variability, respiration rate, temperature, and a whole range of activity parameters. And all of that data is streamed via an app on the mobile phone up to the cloud and then displayed on the pre-op team's portal back at the hospital, where they can call off individual reports for the MDT process and for the clinical decision making that takes place prior to surgery. And it gives them a more granular 360 view of the patient's health, more so than they have at the moment. The other advantage is that the trust can send them all of the questionnaires that they would normally undertake within the pre-op clinic directly to the patient's app for completion. So that includes the full medical history, and it also includes a number of other functional capacity questionnaires, which normally we just don't have time to ask the patient about. So we've got questionnaires in there about pain, about their anxiety, about their cognitive state, about other frailties, and other activity questionnaires that we can send to them. These are all clinically validated questionnaires which are standardly used in the NHS. And the combination of that functional capacity and hard real data over 7 days gives us, as I said, a better view of the patient's health status. We can also add in what we call QR15 questionnaires, which, when filled in preemptively, give us an indication as to the patient's post-op recovery requirements, so that we can plan for care after surgery and faster discharge. So that's what the system looks like. It's a completely digital system using a wearable biosensor and an app, and then the back-end portal is then used obviously by the hospital trust. What's also useful is that we can set alerts around the data. So if the patient is in the community, we can check if data is going out of scope, and we can use it as a monitoring system just to check if there's anything wrong. The temperature is incredibly important because it gives us an indication if there's any underlying infection, which would preclude the patient from coming in for their eventual surgery. And what we're going to be doing in the near time is adding some ECG reporting software into the system so that we can generate some ECG reporting reports for the clinicians. And we'll be adding in some predictive software later on when we have that regulated as a software medical device. So what does the value proposition look like? Well, it's a truly remote assessment technology that's designed to improve risk stratification. And we've already demonstrated that we've improved compliance and adherence in our clinical studies. The other advantage is that we can increase operational flow through the hospital, so that there's a more efficient transition of patients across the pathway, and ultimately improve speedier recovery and reduce length of stay. And because it is more cost effective, the trust could generate in-year cost savings and think about how they could improve productivity by releasing staff to do other activities. And as I said, when the predictive software comes on later on, what that will effectively do will help with waitlist prioritization so that we can affect things like cancellations by identifying patients that are most suitable for cancellations, instead of the trust ringing up the next 10 on the list and not being very granular as to whether they're fit enough to come in for their surgery. So we're supported by all of these organisations who you know incredibly well around the region. But more importantly, we're very proud of the relationship that we have with you as a trust and the university and the NIHR community as well. But this is a big shout out to you, Richard and Bev, and to Aileen. The Innovation Pop-Up and Beverly have been phenomenal in supporting us, actually, as we navigate our way through the trust. Because we are quite a bit behind where Sanah is in her development, and we're hoping to move forward with our pilot within the trust very, very shortly. So in summary, it's a remote preoperative assessment technology. It's more patient-friendly, more cost-effective. And as a result, we can improve a number of outcomes when it comes to the transition into a digital technology. And I think it's really important just to mention some of the customer feedback that we've had. Compared to what you currently have as a technology for doing preoperative assessment, all of the surgeons that we've interviewed, that's over 100, have referred to it as a game changer. And patients really like it. 90% of them preferred SurgeFit compared to the current process that they're currently undertaking. And our clinical study has very clearly shown that we're 95% compliant. So I'll stop there, Richard.
Thank you so much, Michael. Thank you. Great insight into what SurgeFit can achieve. Great feedback from patients there that you shared at the end. Great to have you with us again, Michael, to present to, as it really feels like what you're doing is kind of bringing surgical pre-op assessment into the modern era, more up-to-date, more inclusive. So thank you very much. I'm going to open up for any questions that anyone might have to Michael. Meninda?
Yeah, thanks, Michael, for a great presentation. My question is around the questionnaire functionality, and probably more in the post-operative space. And that is there the opportunity to insert in there our own questionnaires or bespoke questionnaires that might fit our clinical care pathways?
Absolutely. We've designed the platform so that it is bespoke to whatever people want. So we can add in additional questionnaires. Now, we just have to be mindful that the system is live and active in a patient for 7 days, and we can't bombard them with questionnaires. So how we've designed the system is that the preoperative clinic, and every surgical discipline is slightly different. For example, they might want to add in additional questionnaires. The system is designed to time those, so they could get one in day 1, one in day 2, or one in day 3, or sequence of them. But if we are going to onboard a questionnaire that comes from a trust, what we would do is go through a little bit of development to make sure that the questionnaire is shaped and designed in the right way. All of the questionnaires that we built at the moment, we co-designed them with patients because they have to be easy to use. It's like a simple sliding scale or responding 1 to 4 on a questionnaire. So we would adapt those and integrate them into it. So, for example, some trusts that we're speaking to at the moment, because we're not working exclusively just with leads, they want to add in frailty questionnaires, or they want to add in more complex pain questionnaires, or they might want to add in some delirium questionnaires, which are incredibly useful for some of the decision making that they're making, or maybe more complex cognitive questionnaires. So the answer to your question is yes, we can integrate whatever the trust wants to have in there. Now, the predictive software that we're building at the moment, actually, which we're starting in partnership with Leeds University, and we're starting that program very, very shortly, it will be triangulating or cross-referencing the physiological data that we collect, as well as our standard questionnaires. And if we're going to implement and onboard others, then we would have to figure out how we would integrate that. Because that predictive software will be risk stratify patients, particularly to the surgical discipline that it's been implemented for.
Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Meninda, for that question. Michael, just very quickly, you mentioned obviously the large sort of clinical study that took place in Leeds. What's next for SurgeFit in Leeds? You mentioned the potential pilots.
Yeah, exactly. So the clinical study demonstrated very clearly that SurgeFit could be used as an alternative to current standard practice. And all of the benefits that I'm sure everybody can recognize and realize as I've gone through the presentation today. The next stage for us is to do what we call our soft launch pilots or soft launch evaluations. We don't really need any more clinical data because we've demonstrated that it's non-inferior, particularly to CPET, which is considered to be the gold standard, which would be ideal if every patient could tolerate it, but they don't. These are usability pilots where the trust will get an appreciation of how the system works so that they can then identify the cohorts of patients which they would like SurgeFit to be used for. We're not expecting to boil the ocean and every patient going through pre-op will be offered SurgeFit because that would be unrealistic. But the usability pilots will be able to demonstrate that and identify the cohorts of patients which are suitable so that we can then build out the business model from that so that the trust can allocate budget to it. And we also want to collect some other sort of comparative data as well, just on the experience of the patient and the throughput of the patient through the process, so that we can build out a more robust cost consequential model. And we're working with YHEC in order to do that. So the data that we have from the trust here will help us with that.
That's great. Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you. And thanks very much for coming to present today. Great to hear from you again. And again, perhaps we'll invite you back in the future to hear about how things have progressed in Leeds. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks to Michael. At this point, I am going to look at the time and see we have 18 minutes left, and I'm hoping that Mike Odling-Smee has joined us. Hi, Mike. Hi.
Hi, everyone.
Great to have you with us again. I'm going to hand over to you, Mike, very conscious of time to present on what our Innovate and our Logic can do.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Richard. Another Michael or Mike. So let me just try and share my screen. Oh, shared the wrong thing. Not that that's a terrible thing. That was in case we got to it. That's our one of our latest innovations. Sneak preview there, but we'll see if we got time to go on to that.
Thanks. Yes, we can see that.
Can everyone hear me okay as well? Just checking that.
Yeah, all good.
See, okay. So I'm here as Aire Innovate, but people in the trust already use our technology. So some of this should hopefully be familiar, and you may know us under the sort of sister company Aire Logic logo. If you know us at all, you may not, and that's fine, because ultimately we work quite hand in glove with the Leeds team, so we don't sort of tend to try and occupy the foreground. But as you'll see, we'll talk through some of the sort of ways we're already working with Leeds Teaching. Is our technology is already being used and embedded in PPM Plus, and in fact does quite a large job within that context. But overall, with our other customers and everything, to the theme of analog to digital. What our toolset does is it's a super flexible toolset that allows that analog to digital transition, allows us to sort of communicate with different systems, digitize existing processes, and iterate and improve on processes. So I'll just go through that all in a little bit more detail. But first, for the context, and you'll be able to tell me a little bit more about how true this is. But I think it's from our experience and our work elsewhere, this seems to be a bit of a theme. So first off, from a sort of technical and business and clinical perspective, I don't think any of us know where we're going, really, do we? I know there's a 10-year plan, but I'm fairly sure that will maybe last 2-3 years, and then there will be new things that come along that slightly mean the plan needs to be adjusted, etc. Because ultimately, especially in the technology space, things are changing so rapidly that 10 years is, if you imagine where we were in 2015 versus now, in particular in terms of AI, etc., it's just transformative. So I don't think we know where we're going collectively. We know the system needs to change. That's part of the analog to digital shift, and we know clinical services are going to change. So there's transformation happening everywhere. But to sort of set the scene, I think the current state, and I think I would say this because we're involved in these teaching and PPM Plus and everything, Leeds in actually a better state than a lot of trusts from what we can see. But clinicians, I think, often feel like this because the technology is not always working for them. The one caveat I would say is that clearly no one in the NHS has 6 screens. So this is probably how you feel with all of the applications you have to have open on the one screen that you got, if you're lucky. Because you're trying to understand the patient, looking at multiple contexts and everything like that, and it's not particularly well joined up. So that's kind of on the mission. The mission that we're on is to make things a little bit more seamless, make things localized, and make things work for clinicians. Because, as I say, everything's changing. So we've specifically designed a tool set that manages change, essentially, and manages localization. And just before I get to sort of talk about what that tool set looks like, as I say, some of you will be already familiar with aspects of it. And one of the things that we sort of recognized early on is, I'm a technologist. I don't know what it's like to work in theatre or on a ward day to day. But what we're really about, and hopefully that what speaks to everyone on this call, is we want to provide some sort of power tools, if you like, to allow clinicians and others involved in health and care the tools to be innovators themselves. So we provide a certain level of innovation that sits at the sort of technology level, but we want our customers to be able to build new systems on top of our platform in the same way that you might use Excel to build a spreadsheet that analyzes data, etc., and plots some graphs. It's the same sort of concept. We've got a power platform built for healthcare with all the clinical safety, security, information governance, everything like that built into it. But we would like our customers, and indeed we have customers doing this, that can innovate then on top of that platform and do it super rapidly as well. So that's why we're on a mission to enable clinical innovation at one level. So what does this platform look like? Well, these are the sort of, like we've deliberately chosen these sort of Lego bricks as an analogy, because you can build almost anything you want from it. So we've got a data capture tool, which is the one primarily digital forms at the moment, but we're looking at things like ambient AI, chat box, etc. As well. But that's the thing that probably most people will be familiar with, because almost all clinical data capture in PPM Plus is done through our data capture tool. It's sort of seamlessly embedded in PPM Plus, so you may not notice it's a different tool. We've got a workflow and automation engine that allows you to automate whatever you can automate, but it also allows you to sort of manage a whole patient pathway and sort of have manual interventions when manual interventions are required, or sort of communicate with the patient, etc. Interoperability, a little bit of a technical term, but for those who are unfamiliar with it, this is the sort of engine that allows our tool set and indeed other systems to communicate with each other. So we enable that sort of seamless data flow, which again is one of those foundational things you need to provide joined up care, and also in the world of AI you need joined up data sets and real-time data. So we've got a tool to solve that. And then something that definitely LTH won't be needing is also a clinical record product. But these Lego bricks are a bit pick and mix, so you can choose which ones. Our customers don't need to use them all. Like I say, LTH is mainly using the data capture tool, although there is a little bit of that interoperability engine as well. So yeah, super flexible platform. And importantly, one of the things that we've seen, again, working with lots of organizations, is whatever you think you need today is unlikely to be the thing that you think you need, that you'll be wanting to use in 2 years' time. You'll want to continue to evolve, and that's again something that we sort of built as a foundational kind of capability within this tool set. So all a little bit abstract, but yeah, to sort of stretch the Lego analogy, basically our customers can use this tool set to build whatever their end product looks like, and I'll show you some use cases in a moment, but it's spanning use cases across the health and care spectrum, different care settings, not just acute like needs teaching, but primary care, mental health, third sector, etc. We kind of cover all of those use cases. So for us, we're to talk to some of those other sort of key shifts in terms of moving to community care, and indeed sort of like, I guess, whole regional care. Those are good use cases for us because our platform has been designed to cover the kind of whole spectrum. So at LTH, what do we do? Well, as I mentioned, it's embedded in PPM Plus. If you haven't, you're probably unfamiliar with the stats, but that equates to around over 3 million form submissions a month. So quite heavy use. LTH was one of the early trusts to sort of really adopt the sort of paper light or almost paper-free environment. That may or may not be the experience on the wards, I don't know for sure, but there's certainly a lot of digital traffic on our platform, and it's used across a huge number of clinical scenarios with, I think, 300 odd different sort of clinical data capture templates. So yeah, a massive variety of stuff it's used for. I don't even know. One of the great things about the platform is that we can hand over the capability of adding new kind of stuff to it to our customers. So I don't personally know everything it's used for, which is kind of interesting. In the same way that Microsoft doesn't always know what Excel's used for. It's also less heavily used, but it's used for patient-facing forms, PROMs, pre-clinical assessments or whatever it is. And again, it's totally flexible as to what it can be used for. And I think this is an area that LTH could potentially use the platform a lot more, to be honest, because when any of these patient-facing forms are used, they go straight back into the PPM Plus record and then are visible to clinicians. We also integrate with the patient portal, so that's not a barrier at all. It can be, whether if your patients are on the portal, any of these forms can be launched and used there. And we've been talking about pre-op. Michael's been talking about pre-op. That is something that we already do, and it's digitized. And actually, before you think, God, are we worried about, there's Asclepius and Surgifit, and then there's what we're doing. How does that all fit together? We're having very good conversations with Michael. Michael mentioned the fact that actually Surgifit wouldn't necessarily be for everyone, and it's like, well, can we join up what we've already done in terms of digital with Surgifit, and then identify that cohort and go down the Surgifit route for those that need it, etc. So that's just one example of where we've got patient-facing services, but there's quite a few more beyond that. And as I say, there's huge potential there as well. We're also using the platform to do a referral process, inbound referrals to LTH. So this is in particular for oncology, for sort of an MDT review and stuff like that. That's something that our team are currently building, and it will integrate and send the data into PPM Plus. And then completely left field, is we also have a thing called OneForm, which was a great title to start off with, but it turned out not to be OneForm at all. It was turned out to be about 30. But anyway, that's all about the logistics around starting up a clinical research project, and that's been live at Leeds Teaching for, well, Richard, you're involved, wasn't it? It was probably, I don't know, 2019, something like that, when we started doing that. 5
or 6 years now, Mike. Yeah.
But we're actually doing a phase 2 of that. More. So there's a bit of the first iteration of it was a bit of a bespoke build. The second iteration, we're going to move fully onto our platform, going to have all of that flexibility and evolvability that the platform offers. So that's currently another thing that's being built. And then again, kind of like a strange one is that we're doing a piece of work with NHS Blood and Transplant, and this kind of gives you a bit of a flavour for the sort of wide variety of use cases that we can do with the therapeutic apheresis. I can never say that word service. Anyway, TAS. We call it TAS because that's easier to say. But they are actually really, they're hosted. They've got 8 units nationally, and 1 is hosted at Leeds Teaching. So that's the sort of link there. So we're doing some work with them at the moment, and that's kind of like specialist EPR, if you like. They have very, very specialized requirement in terms of the sort of transfusion process that they do. And strangely enough, they need to have this ability to work offline as well. So which is bizarre, considering they work at Leeds Teaching. But anyway, there are some reasons behind that around Wi-Fi network or something. I don't know. But anyway. But yeah, kind of gives you a bit of a flavour of what we're doing in the Leeds context, and then broader than that, as I say, across all different care settings, including sort of, for instance, some national systems. Like we've been involved in the sort of national genomics system. It's only in alpha at the moment, but that has eventually that will be around sort of genomics ordering and that sort of thing as well. And I'm conscious of time, so I can't really give you a demo, which I had set up, but that's fine. Hopefully you've got a bit of a flavour for effectively, but the Lego analogy is deliberate. It is like a digital Lego box, and we can support loads of different use cases, clinical innovation. We would love to hear about people's thoughts about what they would like to get up to. So I'll stop there, Richard, so we've got time.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Mike. I'm going to open out straight away for any questions that anyone might have, while also sort of reflecting the great number of use cases that you've highlighted, Mike, there, and just that taken that phrase you used about Aire Innovate being a power platform for healthcare, allowing faster innovation. We all know the challenges around digital governance in the NHS, and the fact that you've got the platform there that already has that would seem a massive opportunity, I would say, for the trust going forward, and particularly just reflecting on that prom space that you've talked about a lot. I know there does feel like there's a lot of opportunities there going forward. Just been talking to a colleague about some of that today. So does anyone have any questions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think our experience when speaking with sort of so we're sort of engaged with the clinical entrepreneurs program as well, and speaking to, I think, clinicians with great ideas or other innovators in the system don't realise, like, actually there's quite a lot of less exciting stuff that you've got to do, like clinical governance, the security, etc. Clinical safety, and we think that we can be that, as you say, that accelerator to just get to the actual clinical use case that you want to do, rather than worrying about things like interoperability and clinical safety. And I mean, you obviously have to worry about clinical safety to be clear, but what do you mean? We can just give that sort of acceleration, and you can kind of immediately work at that higher level of the clinical use case you want to solve.
And that interoperability, so that connectivity already with PPM Plus, surely that's got to be an advantage to further accelerate some of that and give that access to data within our EHR. So thanks, Mike. I think that's been really good opportunity to see the potential there from Aire Innovate. I don't have any questions, but I will encourage anyone to contact Mike, please, if anything has sparked your interest from Mike's presentation today. Likewise, I know Mike, Aire Innovate, Asclepius and Medishout are all members of the Innovation Pop-Up. So if you want our help in facilitating any connections or finding out more, please contact one of the innovation team too. At this point, I have 1 minute left, and there's just a couple of things I want to say. First of all, just to say thank you to all of our speakers today. We have recorded the session, so if everyone's okay, we're going to share that across our innovation mailing list so that more people can view that and consume the presentations as well. So thanks again to you all for presenting. Thanks for everyone who's attended today. It is always great to have people actually attending the sessions live, if you like, because we do want to encourage some and spark some ideas, some thoughts and conversations through that.